I was living in Southeast Asia, and I would hear this story regularly about two botanicals. One's called durian, the king of fruit. One's called mangosteen, the queen of fruit. And I was very intrigued with how the Southeast Asians, when they eat durian, it makes them heaty, is what they'd say. But then they say you always eat mangosteen afterwards because it cools your body down, brings your body into balance. When you hear that kind of folklore, you realize there's got to be something to it. And it's not just the same in Malaysia. Same stories throughout all of Southeast Asia. And I thought that was very intriguing. So what is it about this mangosteen? What is it about this queen of fruit that brings your body into balance is what caused me to start asking these questions.
And I remembered Joe calling one day, and he asked me if I had ever heard of it. I knew pretty much everything that was in my products, but I had never heard of the mangosteen.
I remember the question Joe asked me when he was talking about the mangosteen. He said, did Mom ever sell this in her health food store? My mom had a health food store growing up. We sold a lot of supplements. No, I don't recall ever seeing mangosteen.
My brother Gordon and I, we have a brother who was doing a PhD at the time. And we said, can you research these botanicals? Can you tell us if there's any research on it?
The durian, the king of fruit, and mangosteen, the queen of fruit. And anyone else, I think this would have been an odd request. But in our family, it really wasn't, because our mother owned a health food store. My dad was general manager for a natural product company in Canada when we were growing up. We grew up in the industry of natural products and network marketing. And so it wasn't out of the ordinary for us to say, hey, have you heard of this botanical? Have you heard of this botanical? So when Joe asked me, I said, sure.
See, after 20 years to be a mother and a wife and homemaker and all that, I realized, hey, I need to take care of myself or do something on my own that I like to do. I raised 5 children in health and nutrition. I know that, and I like to have a health food store.
Joseph, he began at an early age to see we had aloe vera plants in the house. We'd get a cut, a bruise, an abrasion, a burn. We'd take a pair of scissors, squeeze out some of the gel, put it on. Wow, that's cool. He said, one day I want to discover the next aloe vera.
And if you look at some of the powerful stories that have been introduced to the marketplace, are stories like aloe vera, stories like ginseng, stories that have resonated with the populace and gone to market in a powerful way. This had every element and more.
This mangosteen fruit has such a long history that you go back to evidence of mangosteen being used traditionally going back 1200 BC in the floors of caves in Indonesia.
And I thought, wow. I remember us looking at each other just thinking, well, we have something huge.
When I first heard of the mangosteen from Joe, I was intrigued, but very skeptical, because it was a fruit that I wasn't familiar with. And how could a fruit that I wasn't familiar with have so many powerful attributes about it? How could it do so much good that people were actually researching it throughout Asia?
It's not a new fruit. It's just new to us. It's been around for centuries.
That was really that quintessential moment when Gord, Aaron, and I looked at each other and said, we have it.
It took a dreamer like Joe to discover it.
And myself, Joe, and Aaron, always our career paths always kind of overlapped over the years. And we would play the someday game, and someday we'll start our own company and we will do this, and someday we'll start our own company and we won't do that. And mangosteen started to become more and more obvious to us as a anchor botanical for this company. And you couldn't ask for a better botanical.
My very first meeting, it was in March of 2002. I was called to a luncheon, and I arrived at the luncheon, and there was Gordon Morton, Joe Morton, and Aaron Garrity. They had big smiles on their faces. I thought they were happy to see me. They're really excited about what they had discovered in this mangosteen fruit.
They introduced me to a new phrase I hadn't heard. I mean, I'd learned a lot of Latin terms in the legal community, but they talked about Garcinia mangostana, or mangosteen. I'd never heard of it. Why hadn't we heard of it here? Doesn't grow in the U.S. You can't get it in North America, period. So this unique fruit they were talking about excited me on what it was.
I was somewhat skeptical, having run a network marketing company before. I wasn't sure I really wanted to do another one. But their enthusiasm was backed up by what I took home over the weekend, studies about this mangosteen fruit. I called Aaron on Monday morning and said, we've got to find a way to bring this product to market.
The very first presentation of XANGO as a company brand product was with Dwayne Dyer.
And I remember meeting with Gordon and his brother Joe and Aaron Garrity.
We went to one of those restaurants where they have a paper tablecloth and the server writes his name with a crayon on it, and he left the crayon.
As we started talking, he said, we're starting a company, and he said, we're thinking about calling it XANGO, and he actually wrote it out.
And then I circled it for dramatic effect.
I was trying to look for everything why I would not want to do this. And I remember thinking, that's very cool.
He maintained quite a poker face that night.
And I just told her the story of what had happened.
Dwayne called me, and he said I had a chat with Melody, his wife. And he left a long, pregnant pause to make sure that I sweat.
And I remember Melody saying, immediately, without any hesitation at all, she said, you should do this. We should do this. These guys are going to make it, and going to make it good.
He said, Mel's in. I'm going to resign from my corporate position, and we're going to do this full time. I think that was one of the greatest moments of my life.
XANGO brought the mangosteen to market. There's never going to be a company that can lay claim to that point because we did it first.
It's about the size of a peach. Not very big, but beautiful.
It's very photogenic. It's purple, and you open it up, and it's almost milky white or snow white inside. And it's got a stem, and on the bottom of it has a little starburst pattern that tells you how many segments are inside the fruit.
You had to learn how to open it. It's not like eating an apple. This was an exotic fruit not known to most people. And as we opened it and ate it, it's the best tasting fruit I've ever tasted, bar none. We had a lady who came in who was a great distributor, and she knew this business inside and out, and she was sitting there, you know, pushing off them. You could tell the body language.
When they started describing it, and they said Southeast Asia, and I said, are you talking about mangosteen?
And she let out a squeal like a schoolgirl.
I grew up with it in the Philippines. So when they were talking about it, I was so excited because it's not a hearsay for me. And as a child, I would eat the fruit, and my grandmother would say, you're going to give me back the rind. Because my grandmother would pick it up and string it and put it by the window, let it dry.
Folklore was sufficient for my family, but for the time, the early 2000s, 2002, the world had evolved to the point where you need scientific validation. People want to know why something is working. So it was a very nice surprise when we saw that there was a sizable amount of research and studies and peer-reviewed and empirical data supporting the efficacy of this botanical.